How are you doing today? All my family and the family. How is the week been? We give honor to life in every ways. And we know with clarity that the light of God in us is more than capable to keep us beautiful at all times. Beautiful, beautiful. That's the light of God in us all the time. Alafia. The aim of Ifa Ela ministry is to remove every form of gaps that is keeping man and woman separated from one another. With the overflowing love of God in us, that aim is not going to be just a matter of hope, because the God, the inner God in us has already done it. It is time for us as well to receive this clarity and begin to walk towards making sure there's no gap between the love that keeps us together as one people. Alafia. Last week, what we talked about was based on overflowing love. And the importance of that topic was love must overflow. Because if love don't overflow, it means we're not really talking about love. Because dry love, obviously, is a love that don't have enough energetic purpose to keep two people together as one, or don't have enough energy to keep two people moving in the space of life that God has written concerning their love and their life, meaning every aspect of their life, because universal God put two people together for a greater purpose that we, the people of the world, we haven't even started to look into that yet. There's a reason why God put two people together as one. And the reason is definitely not far-fetched from a greater purpose. It is because we've been functioning not in overflowing love that has actually makes that greater purpose that God put two people together to perform or to do somewhat on a back burner of hope. And now that we know with clarity we're in God time now, that has become at the forefront of light, of life. That overflowing love is the way forward. And with God, the strong arms of God, Morimi Phyla, the living God, the loving God that is in us, that we are, nothing is impossible. Meaning nothing that is of God is impossible. We know that we're not the one that is going to do it directly, but the strong arms of God that is leading the way has already done it. So, yeah, it is done. It's either you have clarity in that regards or not. Either way, God relates to every one of us in overflowing love. And we won't have any option but to be a person that is overflowing with the love of God. Alafia. Today, the topic that we're going to be looking at together is flesh, which is very much in tune with the last topic. I said that because if a person is not functioning in an overflowing love, it is very easy to find yourself functioning as flesh. And flesh obviously is an energy that we know to be carnal. When we function as flesh, it means it means that person is not yet coming to functioning as a person who, if you like, that respect their soul. Because if you're functioning in carnal matter, if you're functioning in a worldly way of life, it means you're not really connecting to that soul aspect of you. And a lot of the time when we say flesh, there's no way that we're not going to mention sex, because flesh activity that doesn't connect with the soul aspect of life are functioning in a flesh sexual way. And that's why we're told from get-go that having a sexual relationship outside a marriage is simply flesh, and it is carnal, and it is worldly. It is not God way. When we say worldly, we're trying to say it is not God way. But of course, the world belongs to God. So you can see when we function that way, which we're actively trying to do things not God way, it's not relevant, because the world belongs to God, as everything in it belongs to God. So that is pointing to an area whereby we need to begin to take the soul aspect of us important, meaning we should not continue to disconnect our flesh and soul, thinking flesh is we treat it different, and then we don't bother to treat the soul at all, or even treating them separately. No, it's all one. Remember, mind, body, and soul is one. We must begin to teach ourselves how to connect the three as one. Not doing that means we are being self-destructive to ourselves. Therefore, it is of no point when we know what we're doing is self-destructive and then we're praying to God at the same time. It just doesn't fit together. That is not being in alignment with the way of life. Because when we're saying the way, worldly way, are we saying that's not the way of life? I guess not. That's why it feels that majority of people are more interested in treating death rather than life. So we can't be treating death and expect to have life. Because in God, there's no death. In life, there's no death. In light, there's no death. There's only life proceedings. Now let's take this topic from a very basic blank sheet, and then we can fill it up from there. What I'm trying to say is, let's just ask ourselves, what is flesh? Ordinarily, I will say that flesh is something that covers an inner part of a person. But when to look at it from a bodily aspect of flesh, it's a artificial waterway, if you like. And just the thought of that people look at sex like a carnal sort of activity, that is totally off. It doesn't even sound good to hear. Think about it. Like you would take a person, how can you be engaging with someone in an artificial kind of way, like it's and literally speaking, if you separate love and sex, then sex will obviously remain carnal. It will be an artificial activity. So by saying that is enough for us who really have who really have ears to listen and to hear clearly, to seriously sit down and say to ourselves, do I really want to continue a life whereby you're having sex with that is not in a loving relationship? And one is not even going to exclude marriage in this conversation, because there's a lot of marriages that what is taking place in that marriage is actually love, is actually sex. Love is not in the picture. So what we're talking about today involve even marriage people to begin to look at themselves as well. Because just because people are married doesn't mean they're having a loving relationship. So if you're in a marriage and it's not in a loving relationship, then what you're practicing is artificial. Sex is carnal. And that is not an energy that will bring forth that purpose that God put two people together for. The purpose, obviously, that God put two people together for is for a greater purpose. It's to glorify God in every way, not just in childbearing, in every way a person know to glorify God. That's the reason that God put two people together. But that don't seems to be the order of the day, generally speaking, because people are not really participating in sexual activity that nurtures their soul, that nourishes, that honor, that respect their soul. Because when you remove love from sex, then it's artificial now. It doesn't matter whether you're in a marriage or otherwise. Which actually bring it to the forefront that when a person is not married, it's highly important that you don't engage in a sexual relationship, because if you do, you run the risk of having different boyfriends, which is what happens a lot of the time. And you find yourself having sex with different type of people, or different kind of people. This is not in any shape or form. Obviously, we don't even need eyesight to tell us that it's not safe, it's not adequate. It doesn't. An adequate person, a disciplined person, you don't do this to yourself. Is self-destructive. But above all, you're actually disrespecting your inner person. Therefore, when love and sex is separated, what you have is a flesh activity, a mere carnal, artificial way of two people engaging with one another, which obviously, as I said earlier, would just leave that person's soul in a disarray. And that actually leaves me personally to look at the word spirit is flesh, really. Spirit is flesh. Because if spirit is not flesh, and people are so uppity up about spirit, then why do we still have the world that is full of confusion about sex? Why do we still have the world knowing that this that they're doing is not really the best way to do things or the best way to go? But they're still doing that, which is only going to confuse their life. Could it be because we're definitely not clear as to what we're saying or what we're doing? Spirit is worldly. Spirit is flesh. Spirit is worldly activities. People who are not particularly doing things godly way participate mostly in what you like, spirit. So spirit is more of something that individual people who knows how to function in that line of things can conjure spirit and be something that they can take advantage or use. And at the end of the day, the thin line between spirit and the world, spirit realm and the world, one might say just like when you close your eyes and when you open your eyes, because spirit things takes place when the workman eye is closed. It's like things you really cannot see with the workman eye, with the eye that we use for walking, so that we don't fall over ourselves. But spirit are things that you see when you close your eyes. I guess one thing that is clear about spirit is that it is not everybody that knows about the knowledge of how spirit would function. That I would say very, very much. But what I'm trying to get at is spirit is just as good as flesh. The only thing is, in spirit, flesh may be interchangeable, like clone, if you like. So what I'm trying to say in simple term is activity of that is based on flesh, meaning carnal, meaning artificial, is highly like engaging in spirit. Because when you spirit and soul, it's two different things. Soul is not flesh. Spirit is flesh. I'm just trying to get this to people so that you will actually begin to connect with the light of God, the inner God that you are, so that we don't get confused anymore. So activities of carnal or flesh is spirit. It is of this earth. That's what I'm trying to say. And it doesn't particularly encourage a person to behave in God's way. People use it in terms to make them, to deem themselves that they've got power, because they can use spirit to affect people. Mostly when you're sleeping, that's when spirit tend to run rampage. When you're not sleeping, possibly, but you won't see it with an ordinary eye. So what I'm saying is that spirit is flesh activities. It's what human beings that don't engage, particularly in God's way, practices. It's almost as if it's zombie-like. Spirit is something that can be remote controlled. So if you're too engaged in carnal behavior or having sex with whoever, whenever you like, without giving a thought to it, or knowing that it does have an effect on your soul, on your inner person, well, I'm trying to let you know that it does have an effect on a person. Therefore, it is not in any shape or form safe or best idea or give a person or make a person more powerful when you're engaged in anyhow type of flesh activities. We are all flesh and blood inside of a soul. It is very important that we know it's of no benefit to us to separate sex and love. We have to begin to find a way, the importance of the two as one, because separating sex and love does not mean you can separate them. You cannot separate sex and love, but these are the way of the world. We know things we shouldn't do, but we do it, and then it turns around. That which we are doing brings forth problem upon people, and then we sit back and we start to call on God. and then God don't answer, so people go to spirit instead. Why should God answer you when God is never left you in the first place? Why should God answer you when God is forever present in the first place? It's because you're doing things that is stopping you from being able to connect to God. And then people invent spirit. And when it comes to spirit, then power becomes how people relate to one another. If you're that one person that believes in power. Because when we look at that word power, it's a whole lot of stuff by itself. But for those who function in power, seriously speaking, they're just saying who has the more ability to call the more powerful spirit, not to say the more vicious spirit or the more you understand what I'm trying to say? Therefore, we need to begin to look into our sexual aspiration and make sure it is not that which is going to be affecting our soul. You need to begin to think, who are you sleeping with? And for what purpose? Each one of us needs to begin to think in this line of thought. As it is our way of life in Ifa Ela ministry, we're using this moment to celebrate our ancestors from the onset of life. We're celebrating all our ancestors, now and forever. And we're celebrating all the energy of ancestors that we have become. Because we must remember, when we think God, we must think ancestors. It's the energy of life that are one, and it can never be separated. We give honor to life in every way that's given us the strength and the ability to not compromise the love of God that is in us by any means or by the way of flesh. The strong arm of God, the living God, the loving God, our tangible God. We honor you, Morimi, and we love you without. We honor you, Morimi Ifa Ela, and we love you without compromise in every way. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, and forever. And we give honor to you that you made it clear to us that every step that we take from today in our lives shall only be to glorify the love that you keep with us. No way that we will mention flesh activity that we will not connect it to sex, because the clarity here is we should stop separating our flesh, meaning our sexual life, and our love. Sexual activity that is not based on love have a way of creating a lack in a person's life. What do I mean by that? When you find yourself having sex that is not love-based, it means that person runs the risk of not being able to learn the art of loving oneself fully. Why? Because such person will be looking for love elsewhere instead of within. That is the reason why we should begin to have a renewed sexual orientation or sexual aspiration, individually and together as people. We can do it. It's not impossible with God that loves us, that knows our name, that we love. As a result, I would like to remind us that the realization that I have, it is personal for me. I don't know about somebody else, but the realization that I have is that love is law of nature, cosmic law. And we know very much that when we're talking of sex, in reality, whether we like it or not, we are referring to love. Therefore, it is high time that we begin to look into Why are we having sex? And with who? And for what purpose? We shouldn't just think it's okay to just begin to have sex anyhow. Think about it. It's the most important part of a person's life. Today, begin to think in line of how it is necessary for you to start to live a life of renewal. Begin to think about it. Alafia to every one of us out there. And I keep all my alafia to myself all the time. We give honor to life in every way. Give honor to God Ifa Ela, the strong hand of everlasting God will keep us beyond next week.